Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Any mentions of rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal or tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.
A new Forbes Advisor study has identified the biggest financial regrets from 2023. We dive in and share some tips on how to help you navigate through these common concerns coming up today.
And now, how to retire with Fuchs Financial.
The main thing for the majority of the listeners out there who are approaching retirement is I don't want to be surprised.
Helping you build, preserve, and manage your wealth.
You got Roth IRAs, you have individual accounts, and finding the right taxable strategy, that's going to be huge for you.
Welcome in to How to Retire with Ben Fuchs.
It's all about the Benjamins, baby. Pete Diddy said that. Well, for me, it's more about the Lincolns, but we'll talk about that and how it comes together here on the show, what it means in just
I don't think a lot of people are trying to quote P. Diddy at this moment, but we'll just move right along.
Yeah, maybe that's not a good idea. But, we've already said it, so, too late. The cat's out of the bag, the horse is out of the barn, so on. All right, so here we go. Welcome into How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm your consumer advocate, Gary Nolan. Ben is here to help you take charge of your money. Ben is a certified financial planner, certified private wealth advisor, professional, and fiduciary with over 20 years experience. And, of course, he's with Fuchs Financial. Going to tell you how to get the How to Retire blueprint throughout the show. Ben will tell you why it's vital for you to have as you move into retirement. And, let's give you the phone number right at the top of the show here so you can get on his calendar, get yourself all set up with that comprehensive plan. Now, there's no cost or no obligation. Like I said, Ben and I will be chatting about that throughout the show today. All right, How to Retire Blueprint, 800-380-8985. 800-380-8985. All right, how you doing today, sir? Great to see you. It's great to talk to you, as always.
Yeah, doing okay, man. No complaints. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Did you do your walk around West Farms Mall? Yeah, I know you like to do that.
So I did. I used to work at Nordstrom over, I don't remember, 15-ish years ago. And,
sure,
you'd open up the mall and there would be people walking around and it was great. But, now that the weather's getting nicer in Connecticut, I know in North Carolina where you live, the sun is always shining. But here we actually have the joy of 4 different seasons. So as we are embracing this new season upon us, we're walking outside more.
Yeah, and Ben would stop at the Mrs. Fields cookie. Come on, we all did. Right?
Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't, exactly. All right, I guess we really should get into the show because that's the reason we're here. I think that's the reason we're here, really. All right, so today we're talking about financial regrets facing Americans in 2024. Now, of course, you know what they say about regrets. No, I really don't know, but here it is. Regret is a form of punishment itself, so we're diving into ways to get beyond these common regrets as well. We're going to talk about this Forbes Advisor study. It identified major financial regrets among Americans from last year. We're going to break down the top 4 concerns topping the list. This does not surprise me, probably won't surprise Ben either, is little or no saving for retirement. Roughly 1 in 5 Americans, almost 20%. What do you think about this? And let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, I think that it is one of those concerns. I think that a lot of people, even people that are smart, even people that make good money, don't prioritize saving for retirement enough. And one of the things that we see, because we meet with lots of different people, one of the things that we'll find is even, I would say people that really know their stuff and in certain aspects, right? Even financial people, they don't really prioritize their retirement savings. And so one of the things that we do when people come in for an appointment is, and I talk about this all the time, we call it scenario-based planning, is that we'll actually show them the impact of increasing that savings. I mean, one of the things, I think the best thing that we can do for somebody when you call in for that free consultation, when you get the blueprint that we have, but that blueprint is really your blueprint. So in that scenario, we're going through and we want to show you what the impact is of saving more. And I think that's the problem, is that it's too far away for too many people and they don't see how it will benefit them or the long-term benefits of that additional savings.
Yeah, well, compound interest is your best friend. Am I right, Ben? That's right.
Yeah, I mean, but even without that, right? Even if we're 5 years or 2 years away from retirement, so well, why should I do that? Well, there are 3 reasons. Thank you for asking. Number 1, obviously, you're saving more for your own retirement. That's number 1. Number 2 is that if you haven't been a great saver and we can get that tax deduction, we are reducing your taxes by that increased savings to a traditional 401k, 457, 403b, thrift savings plan, what have you. So that's 2. And then the third, and this is really important, is that it gets you used to spending less. I think a lot of people will nod their heads in the car or wherever they are and say, yeah, I pretty much spend whatever I have in that specific account, and if it's not there, I don't spend it. Well, that's part of the goal, right? Let's get you not used to spending it. So 1, you're increasing your own retirement, you're reducing your taxes, and then you're limiting your spending. Those are 3 important things, but reasons that it can help you.
And I always say pay yourself first. I mean, and that's hard to do, but that's really where it begins. What do you suggest? You start at I guess 10% would be ideal, but a lot of people probably can't do that right off the bat, huh?
Yeah, I think the reality is that you have to take care of some other things, right? You have to take care of life. You have to have a safety net for yourself in your bank account, and you can't have a tremendous amount of debt. I think, you look at the compound interest of retirement saving, yeah, that's great. But if I have 20, 25% interest on my credit cards, well, I'd have to pay that off first. So we have to see where you are in the process and then figure out how we can get to that point of savings. But what we found is that people that have a lot of debt, and people are having more and more lately because of the increased cost of living and wages not going up in line with that increased cost of living. They're going up, but not at the same pace, that we see more and more debt because of that. So in these scenarios, those particularly where there is debt, once we've figured out how we can pay off that debt and we figured out the amount of money that was going to that debt, if that debt is gone and that money is then transferred to going to retirement savings, that's when we really start to pick up steam.
Yeah, and we saw this not too long ago that credit card debt passed the $1 trillion threshold not too long ago. Let me remind everybody, the show is How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm Gary Nolan, your consumer advocate. Ben is with us each week at this time. The How to Retire Blueprint, it's necessary if you want to have a smooth ride into retirement. You need that blueprint. It's the How to Retire Blueprint, 800-380-8985. Ben will tell you more about that as we go throughout the show. All right. Oh, the phone number. Yeah, let's do that. Make sure we do that. 800-380-8985. 800-380-8985. Get the How to Retire Blueprint. Okay, so next on the list of financial regrets from last year, failing to take advantage of interest-bearing accounts. And that was at 15.8%, so that's up there too.
Yeah, it's significant. So this is important. I think if you, again, are at home and you have a lot of money in your checking account or in a savings account that just is not generating any money, then you should change that around. I met with a client, I think it might have been the midpoint of last year, might have even been the beginning of last year, where we just do we do reviews twice a year. And they were talking about how much money they had in cash, and it was somewhere around $200,000, which is great. And I said, oh, okay, just, out of curiosity, how much is that earning? And they're like, oh, whatever they pay, it's like 0.02% or something in the checking account.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, I'm not a genius, but let me ask you a question. They said, okay, Ben, what do you got? I said, would you give away $10,000 a year for nothing? I said, no, of course you wouldn't give that away. All right, well, of course, like, why would anybody give away $10,000? Great question. So why are you only getting 0.02%? Let's move that into a place where you can get 5%, and it can be with a CD. It doesn't have to be invested with me. In fact, I didn't want that money invested with me because they were planning to use it in about 2 years. So I'd rather, in their scenario, I wanted them to find a different. But anyway, they were able to move that into a place where they're getting 5% for the next, I think it's 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So great. They're going to get another $20,000 over 2 years just from a simple conversation, because it's not that people are stupid. It's just that most people don't think about this stuff all the time because it's not their job.
Sure.
And I don't give anybody a hard time about that. I understand that. It's just not the priority at that moment. But you only think about it when you focus on your financial stuff. But there's so many other things going on in life where we're torn in different directions and pulled in different areas. I mean, a dentist is always going to have great teeth because they think about teeth all the time, right? I mean, that's right. They see all the horror stories of what happens when you don't brush. So they're going to have, but not everybody else, right? I think about it right before bed, and that's about it. End of the morning.
Oh, okay. Right? So not far behind in third place, the list of Americans' financial regrets from last year is taking on too much credit card debt, 14.8%. Again, none of these statistics are shocking to me. Am I right?
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, this one's very relatable to a lot of people. And, debt in general is the greatest or one of the greatest killers of wealth if used incorrectly. So in the current economic climate, Americans have amassed $1.14 trillion in credit card debt, with APRs rising more than 30%, right? The amount of interest you're paying is over 30% in the last year and a half, and a record-breaking, again, over $1 trillion in credit card debt plaguing Americans. This area is commonly eroding the budgets of many, many people. So one of the things that I think we talked about last time, or that I read recently, was that people are not only planning these massive vacations for summer, but also figuring out what kinds of loans they can take to go on these massive vacations. Mm-hmm. And again, think about the long-term impact of paying off a vacation 5 years from now and paying 20% on that vacation or 30% on that vacation every year, because you put it on the credit card. So these are things that have to be, thought about before you pull the trigger.
All right, one more time. One more real quick, Ben. And this doesn't surprise me. On the list here of Forbes Advisor's list of financial regrets at 13% is failing to save enough money for emergencies.
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons that people really get into debt is that they kind of spend down their emergency fund, they go on all these things, they do the things, and then when something happens, right, when you need a new car, when you need new tires, when the roof breaks, when you have issues, you don't have a way to pay for that, right? You either have to take money out of the home equity line of credit, which used to be 2.5% and now is north of 8%, or you have to put it on credit cards. And we don't want people to be in that position. We talk about a lot of things. We do very, very detailed, high-level financial planning for retirement, where we look at income and taxes and retirement and investments. And then we also look at just some basic financial planning pieces that you need to have to keep yourself from getting into debt. And not having that safety net is what will lead you to having significant credit card debt when there is something that comes up that's important. But look, the ultimate goal for us is to help you put that in perspective. We have a How to Retire blueprint. The How to Retire blueprint is basically helping you figure out how to retire. One of the best compliments that I got from somebody recently was he had met with a number of other people on the radio. I don't want to say any names because I don't want to get sued, but you've heard them. And, you've seen them on TV, and I've been on TV, and that's great. But, he said, I went to these 3-4 other people, and, they were nice, and they had their plan, but it was very, very cookie cutter, and you had to fit within your scheme. You created this whole plan that was totally unique for me. And I said, to be perfectly honest, this is a system that all of our advisors use. It's the same system, but how we put it into place is going to be dependent on what people need and what those needs are in front of us. And that's really what the How to Retire blueprint is figuring out what we can do to help you retire based on what you save, based on what your goals are, figuring out how to generate the income that you need, save money on taxes, put it in the right investments, plan for a recession. All those things are incredibly important, and that's what we're here to help you do, but we can't do any of that unless you pick up the phone and give us a call.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's great to hear, Ben. It sets you apart from the other guys out there for sure. And this is your chance to benefit from the How to Retire Blueprint. Call right now. We still have a limited number of availabilities on our calendar this week. And remember, the consultation is offered at no cost or no obligation. Starts by picking up the phone. Like Ben said, nothing changes until you do that. 800-380-8985. The folks at Fuchs Financial standing by ready for your phone call. 800-380-8985. The How to Retire Blueprint. All right, take a short break. Be back with more of Ben and How to Retire in just a moment. What do you have up for next for me, sir?
Do you want to go into retirement without regrets? Then stick around for tips on how to enjoy a carefree retirement. You don't want to miss this conversation.
He's letting the clock run out on his Social Security to age 70 for maximum benefits. And here comes the Roth conversion. He's locked in for income for life. He's got some outstanding coaching with that annuity plan. He's created his own pension as well, and it looks like he's going to go all the way. Play your best retirement game. Call Ben Fuchs at Fuchs Financial, 800-380-8985, 800-380-8985.
Welcome back to the show. More money, more problems. That's our quote for segment number 2 from Notorious B.I.G., who is unfortunately no longer with us. And I would love to have that more money, no problem, more problems. I'd like to see how that works out. But in any case, we'll talk about that.
Don't let them fool you, people. Gary's sitting on his mansion right now. He's actually on the roof with his own personal sound barrier. He's loaded. Don't listen to him.
Yeah, exactly. And well, thank you for sharing that with the listeners who now will be hitting me up for money. All right.
His email is gary.nolan
Welcome to the show. It's How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm your consumer advocate, Gary Nolan. Here to help you take charge of your money again is Ben Fuchs. Ben is a certified financial planner, certified private wealth advisor professional, and fiduciary with over 20 years experience in the business. Of course, he's with Fuchs Financial. The How to Retire Blueprint. It's vital that you have it. And we're going to tell you why, again, in just a few minutes. But here's that phone number. Get yourself started. No cost, no obligation. 800-380-8985. 800-380-8985. The How to Retire Blueprint. All right. So planning for retirement can be challenging, no doubt about that. Unfortunately, when it comes to retirement, mistakes can cost you significantly. The goal, to plan correctly to avoid experiencing the fallout that comes from the most common retirement planning regrets. All right, so we're going to cover some of the retirement regrets now and how you can steer clear of those potholes along the road into your retirement. Pothole analogy, gotta love that too. All right, not saving enough, not starting early enough, Ben.
Yeah, this is probably the most common regret folks face when planning for retirement after they are retired. The regret of not beginning that saving process earlier can not only interfere with your financial well-being, but your emotional well-being and quality of life as well. But listen, I don't want to be a hypocrite. So first of all, I did not start saving for retirement in my 20s like a lot of other people did. They got the benefit of more compound interest than I did. I had some things in life. I tried some stuff with real estate in the early 2000s. That did not go as I had planned. And I could also tell you that it was not my plan to move back into my parents' basement when I was 25 years old. But life happens. Yeah. So yes, not saving enough, not starting early enough is a common concern, but it's also not one of those things to like wring your hands and say, oh man, I'm in trouble. I can't get back on track. You absolutely can. If I can do it, and let's be fair, I'm not that smart. If I can do it, literally anybody can. It just takes a little bit of dedication, a little bit of time, etc. Now, I tell people all the time, I don't know how to do a whole lot else. I know very well how to do retirement and retirement planning because that is the lane. That is where I dive deep. That is where I do my research. That is where I wake up early and read the journal and read MarketWatch and listen to Bloomberg. I am a nerd in that way. That's just me. But you don't have to be. And you don't have to do all that stuff. So yes, that is a big regret, but that does not have to hold you back.
Right. Yeah. So you can't do the brakes on my car. You're not capable of.
Oh God, no. I look. I can.
Yeah.
I can change a tire on the side of the road. That is what I can do.
Yeah.
Anything else, forget it. But to me, that's almost like an emergency fund, right? That's like one of those basic life skills, right?
You got to know that.
You got to know that one because otherwise you could be stranded somewhere. But anything else, like I could barely check my oil. So.
Well, I was going to ask you if you helped me with my brakes, but now I'm not going to ask you. So
I can help you break them somehow.
I'll get a guy. I have to get a guy.
Right.
All right. So okay, let's get to the next one, and it is not including both spouses in the process of planning. We've talked about this in prior shows, but let's talk about why this is important again, Ben.
Yeah, so, there's always one spouse that seems to be more involved in the planning process. And unfortunately, there are times that the spouse in charge of the accounts and or the retirement funds, the one who has that relationship with the advisor, passes before they can share this info with their partner. This makes what is a difficult time even more challenging. In addition to grieving the loss of your spouse, you are forced to try to get your financial ducks in a row. You then have to track down information you need to make the decisions going forward. And for someone who admittedly doesn't know much or care much about the financial process, this can be pretty difficult. I will also say that what I have found, and I don't mean to give anybody a hard time, and no, if you're a client listening, I am not singling you or anyone out, but there are times when the person that handles the money understands different concepts slower than somebody who has not. I think what happens is that the longer that you do one thing, you kind of get more and more rigid in your understanding and in your guidelines for how you want that done. Whereas somebody who's never done that before and is just learning it for the first time is more open to new options and new possibilities and new styles of investment that somebody else might not. So I think it's very important to have both spouses in the initial part of the planning process. I don't think that both people have to be there forever. But if I'm handling one spouse's money, I'd like the other one to have met me at some point so they can know who we are and who they go to in case of a problem. I think that's really important. But that doesn't mean that you have to get all in and study this stuff and know it like the back of your hand. Like Gary said, I don't know how to fix my brakes, but I know somebody that can.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The show is How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm Gary Nolan, your consumer advocate. Thank you for joining us, spending part of your weekend with us. I want you to get the How to Retire Blueprint. It's a comprehensive plan. There's no cost or no obligation. Here's that number, 800-380-8985, 800-380-8985, the How to Retire Blueprint. Ben will talk to you more about why it's vital that you have it at the end of this segment. One more time on the phone number, folks at Fuchs Financial are standing by ready for your call, 800-380-8985. So, and I'm sure it's happened, Ben, that only one spouse was involved and then the spouse passes away and you have to really untangle everything. It's kind of sad, huh?
It's heartbreaking, and I've had, unfortunately, I've known a few people where those circumstances happen much sooner than they expect them to, and you've got to kind of deal with it. And I've met people who were not clients who, the other spouse just handled everything, and they say, I don't know what to do now. Where do I even start? And so again, we take that one step at a time. Let's take a look. Let's figure out what steps need to happen. Where are you in the process? What needs to get done? First, we need to get your name on all of these accounts so that you have control over it. We need to make sure that you actually have the login so you can see where everything is. I mean, there's a lot of just basic stuff that's like, I'm mourning the loss of my life partner, and I'm losing my mind now because this is the last straw that I can't figure out what his password was on our Charles Schwab account. Mm-hmm. Right? So it can be quite difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about that. Make sure you bring your spouse and get them up to speed. Like Ben said, they don't have to be experts. And, one might be more interested in the finances than the other. It doesn't mean the other one should know everything, but certainly enough to carry on in case of an emergency. All right, how about this one, Ben? And we see this a lot, too, because we talk about retirement, the go-go years, the go-slow years, and the no-go years. So spending too much too early, I guess when you're in the go-go years, that can really happen. How you're planning trips, you're going vacations, you're buying a car maybe still, whatever.
Right, and don't get me wrong. Again, it is our goal to help people be able to do the stuff and be able to spend their money comfortably. Now, when we meet with people, again, we go through what we consider to be a process. We want a situational-based planning. What are we going through, right? What happens if I pull a different lever? And so one of the things that we like to show you in our scenario-based planning is the impact of spending too much too early. What happens if you spend $100,000 on a vacation for the whole family the first year, right? What is the impact of that? And, what happens if you spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year on vacations for the next 10 years on top of what your normal spending is, and then it tapers off? And for some people, no problem. For other people, big problem. And I think what we want to do is say, all right, well, what can I do without putting my future at risk, right? Why do I all of a sudden have to get a 12% return on my investments for the rest of my life just to go on this vacation? Is that actually worth it? Is it worth the anxiety of making that decision? So spending too much too early is a common concern. We see that a lot with different clients. But the other thing that we try to do is let them know what they can comfortably spend. And I hate to relate this to being a dad, but, I have an almost 3-year-old, and when you say no to the almost 3-year-old, they get mad and start crying.
Yeah, temper tantrum.
When I say, right, you cannot have this chocolate bar that you managed to push the bench in front of to unlock the child safety locks that were there for that purpose to get the chocolate bar, to unwrap it yourself. No, you cannot have this, but you can have this banana, right? Like you, and so I think the goal is, all right, maybe we can't spend that $100,000, but you can spend 30. Right? Or if you do this year, here's what you have to do the next 2-3 years to kind of compensate for that, right? Here's the impact of it. But, you don't know that unless we can actually go through the numbers and quantify, right, to see the actual impact of that spending.
Yeah, a couple of minutes left, Ben. Let's talk about anything else you want to talk about.
I think we can talk about spending in retirement. I think that was kind of one of the bullet points that we looked at is that, what's important, and I can't tell you how many times we've gone through this, but we basically have a system that we go through with clients to help them figure out what they spend in retirement. And people will come to me, and I had this happen recently. I had a guy who said, Ben, I've gone through everything that I can possibly think of, everything that I looked at, and I don't see myself ever spending more than $6,500 a month, but I think you can put $6,000 a month. I'm like, okay, well, just go through our process here, just do the stuff, and then come back. And, a week later, and I'm hoping, by the way, that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that he's not spending more. But, I can see what they have in the bank, and I see what they've saved, and, they've got other things and other circumstances. Sometimes you have education loans that you're paying off for your children that deplete your money in other ways. But we did that, and instead of being $6,000 or $6,500, it was over $8,000 a month. And look, that's okay, but understand we need to have the right number. It's not for my benefit. It's not for anybody in my team's benefit. We don't care what you're spending. We just need to know what we can generate and if you can afford that. And so he was planning to retire in 2 years. And I said, you can do that, but you are going to run out of money way sooner than you expect to as a result of this spending. But why don't we have you work an extra 2 years and then work part-time for a year or two? He's like, I just got to get away from this place. I'm like, all right, well, work for 1 more year. I don't care. But we have to get some other income coming in. So that means you do need to work part-time somewhere else. But the whole point is that we needed to create a scenario for him to get what he wanted, which was to be able to get out of that company. Yep. And still be comfortable and not run out of money and to be able to live his lifestyle. So that for him, that just means working part-time somewhere else. So as long as he can find a place where he can do that and doesn't have to make a lot of money. I mean, he was making over $200,000. He only has to make like 40 in retirement. So for him, it shouldn't be a problem. But again, it's how can we be creative to make sure that you're getting what you want in retirement? We can help you do that, but you do have to pick up the phone to give us a call.
It all starts with the phone number, 800-380-8985, 800-380-8985. Your chance to benefit from the How to Retire Blueprint. Call right now. We still have a limited number of availabilities on our calendar this week. And remember, the consultation is offered at no cost or no obligation. So what are you waiting for? Pick up the phone. Nothing changes until you do that. You deserve a more confident plan to retire. You want to be stress-free. You want peace of mind. 800-380-8985, the How to Retire Blueprint. Take a short break and back with more Ben and How to Retire in just a moment. What's up next?
When we come back, we'll break down the latest economic news and what the headlines might mean for your finances. Stay tuned.
We believe in better. A better way to invest. A better way to serve you. And a better result. We can help you determine how much risk you're taking. Red flags that could be potential problems for you. How much you are paying in fees or commissions, potential tax liability, or even how to address Social Security. Call Ben Fuchs at Fuchs Financial, proudly serving all of Connecticut. Call today, 800-380-8985. 800-380-8985.
Welcome back to the show. This is How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm your consumer advocate, Gary Nolan. And Ben is back with us to help you take charge of your money. Ben is a certified financial planner, certified private wealth advisor, professional, and fiduciary. We talked about how important that is because it sets him apart from the other guys because he has to have the best interest of his clients by law and 20 years of investment experience. So let's get to the show right now. So we're covering a few of the biggest headlines in economic and financial world with the help of financial planning professionals to help you get a better handle on the different ways the stories impact your financial future. Now, we're going to kick it off with David Kostin, Goldman Sachs Chief U.S. Equity Strategist. Now,
Goldman Sachs, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I never heard of them. Not familiar with them at all. No. He joined CNBC, not familiar with them either, Squawk on the Street to discuss the markets and the share forecast and what the future holds. Here's our first clip, and we'll get Ben's comments on the other side.
What are we seeing now for the first quarter results? We're about 16% of the way through earnings season. We've seen thus far, most of the companies, about 65% of the companies have actually beat consensus expectations on the bottom line, and about a third have beat expectations on the top line. What that suggests to us is that companies are able and have been demonstrating the ability to kind of squeak over a little bit margin, and margin is basically hold there until a little bit higher. There was some desire to try to raise prices, but it didn't get that strong indication there's a lot of inflation coming. So our forecast is that the market rises slowly in line with expectations for earnings.
All right, what do you think? There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think we have to take a frame of reference. So what does it mean when they beat their expectations? And I think right now, because we continue to see credit card debt piling up, continuing to go up, is that people are spending money that they don't have. So when you see these companies raising prices slowly, as he talks about inflation, trying to raise their margin, I get it, but I think at some point we're going to have a pause on that, because we can only handle so much debt. I think every household right now is trying to figure out how much can they cope with. How can they, how much are they basically mortgaging tomorrow for today? How much are they willing to make additional monthly payments on what they're doing now in the future? And it's not a surprise that these companies have been able to continue to beat expectations, because people are still willing to put this on the credit card. I think at some point when we see credit card debt falling, we will also see some of these profits not meet expectations anymore.
Mm-hmm. So they're continuing to raise prices to match inflation, but also a lot of companies, as they raise prices, let's say inflation starts to go down, I don't see these. You see these companies lowering prices when they've made this much profit?
I mean, I think it's a supply and demand issue. Right now, they can continue to raise prices on the supply because demand is still there. I think at some point demand will drop, and because demand will drop, inventory will build up, and when inventory builds up, that's when you have price drops. You don't do it just because you want to do it. It's not because of the good of your heart. It's because you're in a situation where you are forced to. I mean, look, we can all remember 2008 when there was tons of inventory and people were selling things from fire sales and 50% off, not because they wanted to, but because they had to get rid of the inventory, because they had to move things along. I don't think we're in that position. I don't think that's what's going to come up soon. But I do think there will be a point when people just say, look, I just can't buy stuff for a while. I need to get rid of this debt. I cannot be paying 30% on $10, $20, $30, $50,000 of credit card debt right now. That has to come down. I just can't continue to try to out-earn this. I have to make that a focus. And sometimes that focus means not buying things. And when people stop buying things as a collective, that's obviously when prices will come down. That's supply and demand, basic economics. Yep. But play along that old graph that you saw. We've got that X, right? The supply side and the demand side.
Yep, exactly.
And when the demand drops, so do prices.
Yep, absolutely. The show is How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm Gary Nolan, your consumer advocate. Thank you for joining us, spending part of your weekend with us. Great advice from Ben, as always, today. I want you to get the How to Retire Blueprint, 800-380-8985, 800-380-8985, the How to Retire Blueprint. All right, so we're talking to some of these experts today. It comes to financial planning, and, they know a lot, these guys. Some of them do, anyway. J.P. Morgan, you ever heard of them?
They sound familiar.
J.P. Morgan Chase, yeah.
They're a small bank, right? Is that like Silicon Valley Bank? Is that?
I think it is something along those lines.
Okay.
Anyway, CEO Jamie Dimon. Now, I have heard of him. Now, he joined the Economic Club of New York. By the way, you might think the Economic Club of New York a bunch of nerds. They have legendary parties. They have They have amazing. They had a great kegger last week. It was just amazing.
Is that what they do?
Exactly.
Yeah. They call that kegs and eggs. So that's a 6 a.m. party.
Exactly. Yeah. They have legendary parties. Anyway, Dimon weighed in on the state of the economy and what's in store for the average consumer, remaining very optimistic about the impact of a potential recession would have on folks. Here's Mr. Dimon.
The American consumer, even if we go into a recession, is much wealthier than before. Debt service ratios are very low. They're normalizing now, and credit is, we say it's normalized, it's not gotten worse, but it's still the lowest it's ever been pretty much on record. Their home prices are up, their stock prices are up. Remember, 50% of people don't owe money at all, and so even if we go to a recession, the consumer's in good shape. But that doesn't mean you can fight off the effects of stagflation or something like that if it gets much worse.
What do you think of Jamie's comments there?
So stagflation is, according to the Google, is persistent high inflation combined with high unemployment and stagnant demand in a country's economy. So what that means, prices have gone up, people are out of work, and then because of that, there's not as much pull for goods and services in the economy because people can't afford it. It's just not that important at that point.
Yeah.
So I think what he's saying, he's very optimistic, he's very positive, but again, I think that we are running into concerns. I think that you get right up to an edge, and what we've seen before, and I'm not a gloom and doom kind of person. I'm just not. But what we've seen is that typically when the S&P starts to go up, and then it starts to go up really fast, it starts to accelerate that rise, that's usually before some form of a fall. And last year, it made sense that the S&P would go up significantly because it had gone down significantly the year prior. So basically, all those big gains in 2023 were because 2022 went down about that much. It came back as much basically to break even with it. Now we're seeing even more gains, and we're constantly seeing new highs, except for, a few bad days in a week here and there. But I think that there is some cause for concern. And I think, again, we get to the point where with 30% interest rates on credit cards, it just becomes a massive problem for people trying to overcome that debt. And it is more and more difficult for people to try and out-earn that. So I'm not concerned with stagflation. I think that's a word that's kind of thrown in there that is way more, I guess, would cause me way more concern than anything else.
Yeah.
But it's certainly one of those things that, we need to just, I would say, not be overly optimistic, not be too excited, not because what happens is I get emails from clients. I'm seeing new highs in the S&P 500. Should I be putting more money in there right now?
Right, yeah.
And that's usually when people get hurt, right?
Yeah.
When you kind of follow a crowd, when you get excited over something, when you don't want to miss out, that fear of missing out, and then you kind of get burned when the market takes its hits.
Yeah, and you mentioned this too. So the percentages of increases are a little bit overinflated because they were so low, and so you got a big percentage, but kind of just gets you back to where you were. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened all through last year, where you had this great run on the market. People saying it's wonderful. Well, yeah, because it had gone down about that much prior. I mean, don't forget, the S&P went down, 18, 19% in 2022.
Yeah,
the NASDAQ went down 32, 33% in 2022. And so when it came up 24, the S&P came up 24-ish% last year. I mean, again, we're basically coming back to where we were before. So
kind of back even.
Right. I try not to get overexcited with this stuff and maintain, what is the goal? Let's do a slow and consistent grind. Let's get consistent and steady gains, but let's not try to shoot the moon here if we don't want to lose everything.
All right, one more. We got time for one more clip. BlackRock chairman and CEO Larry Fink sat down with Bloomberg to shine a light on the looming retirement crisis plaguing Americans. Now, he joined David Weston in a discussion where he explained the importance of retiring with dignity. Here it is.
The acute problem here in the United States is that we have still 57 million Americans who don't have any savings or any retirement plan. Social Security is a fantastic foundation for retirement, but if that's all you have when you retire, you're going to be living in poverty, below the poverty line, because it just is not, it's supplemental, but it's not meant to be the totality of what you have in a retirement. And the whole concept of we're aging, we're all living longer. And I think one of the big narratives I've had to reflect in 2023 was the miracles of medicine, of technology, and how it transforms our lives and extends our life. There is not a dialogue in America or most places about can we afford that longevity.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he raises good points. I mean, basically saying, look, the Social Security is meant to be the foundation for retirement, but not the totality of what you spend in retirement. You need your own investments to cover that. Absolutely right. I have no argument whatsoever with those words. And again, I mean, a concern for people is living too long and outliving their money. It's still one of the top three. And for as long as I've been in financial planning, and I've been in investments for over 20 years, but I've been financial planning for well over a decade. That has been one of the top concerns of people, is outliving their money. And we want people to be healthy. We want people to continue to be happy and enjoy their retirement. But there is some concern that, hey, Social Security doesn't quite cut it. And, that's so important. I'm in agreement with them. And so, look, ultimately what we have here is, I think, the basis for why it makes sense for people to talk to a financial advisor as they're approaching retirement. The reality is that you have things, right? Maybe you have a pension, probably have Social Security. Hopefully you have other assets. We need to figure out how you can get a monthly income. How can you recreate your monthly paycheck when you're retired and recreate that paycheck in a way that is the most tax efficient way that you can design it? You can't necessarily avoid all the taxes, but you can certainly pay less if you make a couple of good decisions. And I think that's what we're here to focus on. So how do we minimize your taxes? How do we create that retirement paycheck? How do we put you in the right investments? How do we keep you from being harmed by a significant recession? And then also, how do we make sure that your money is where you want it to be when you're no longer here, right? How do you make sure that it goes to the right places when you pass away? But all of that is covered in what we call our How to Retire Blueprint. And that's what our team of advisors is here to help you with. But we can't do any of that unless you pick up the phone and give us a call.
Yeah, of course. That's where it all starts. And you heard it from Ben. 800-380-8985. First step, sit down with a financial coach. Sit down with Ben and his team. Something we've been talking about resonates with you. You feel a need to get that second opinion or want to make sure your plan is really aligned with your goals. The very important risk tolerance we talk about. 800-380-8985. Get the How to Retire Blueprint. 800-380-8985. Do it right now while you are thinking about it. All right, take a short break. Be back with more of Ben and How to Retire in just a moment. What's up next, sir?
Listeners have questions, and we've got answers. We answer your questions coming up after this.
Do you ever feel like you're fighting for financial knowledge? Don't let bad advice be a punch in the gut to your retirement. Take advantage of a complimentary, no-cost, no-obligation consultation with a local, trusted financial coach.
Call Ben Fuchs and the team at Fuchs Financial, 800-380-8985. That's 800-380-8985.
Welcome back to the show. It's Q&A time. You've got questions. We have answers. Well, I don't have the answers. Ben will have the answers. We'll get to that in just a moment.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We're not quite sure. There's no guarantees in life, but, we can try. But we'll always put our best foot forward. See what happens. Yeah. That's the best we can do.
I mean, I can at least pretend to know the answer. Does that help?
Well, exactly. Hey, it's all theater of the mind, this radio thing. All right, so welcome in. Welcome back to the show. It's How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. I'm Gary Nolan, your consumer advocate. And Ben is back with us to help take charge of your money. Ben is a certified financial planner, certified private wealth advisor professional, and fiduciary, over 20 years of experience. The How to Retire Blueprint. Let's tell you how to get that again in right now. 800-380-8985. And Ben will talk again how important it is that you get it toward the end of the segment here. You really need it if you want a secure retirement. You want to be stress-free, you want peace of mind. All starts by picking the phone and dialing 800-380-8985. All right, these are the questions that came in from the phone. Lenny in Litchfield, how should an individual retirement account be managed? Should I pay taxes now and receive my money tax-free later? Can the taxes owed on the rollover be deducted directly from the rollover account itself? What do we have for Lenny?
All right, Lenny. Well, it may surprise you to know that I can't tell you how your IRA should be managed without understanding everything. So one of the great misconceptions that people have is, people come in and say, all right, well, what do you got? And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. We got to talk to you. We got to figure out where you are. We go, well, why do you need that? Well, because we can't really give you any advice until we sit down and understand where you are. What have you saved in the 401k? What are you spending? What are the goals? How much are you going to get from Social Security? Are you going to have a pension? Are you a risky style person or are you way more conservative? These are the things that we need to figure out, and we do that through a conversation. That's part of our How to Retire Blueprint process. We need to have that conversation in order to get there. But from a general point of view, an IRA should be managed within 3 sections. And there really are only 3 sections where your money can go. You need safe money that will not go down if the stock market crashes. You need to create a monthly income, so I call that an income bucket, right? You need a monthly paycheck when you're not retired. And then the third bucket is the growth, right? Market is going to go up and down. That's great. You can't be reliant on that growth bucket for the first 5-6 years in retirement. But you do need money that will grow for inflation. And so I like to pull 5 or 6 years and leave that to the side, because we need money to grow, to add to whatever you need for income now, to whatever you need for safety now. We know that whatever you're spending now will go up over the next 2, 3, 5 years, so we need to plan for it. So that's how an IRA is typically managed. How we break those accounts down, what sections we go into, is completely dependent on the person in front of us. Yeah. Now, paying your taxes now versus receiving the money tax-free later, different ballgame, right? For a lot of clients, we do recommend Roth conversions. For a very few set of people, we do that while they're still working. For others, we do that right after they retire. And for some, we don't do that at all, but we need to have the question answered. So again, when we talk about our scenario-based planning, that's when you come in and we go through all that tax piece for you. And then as far as the taxes owed on the rollover, when you do a rollover from your 401k or your 403b, or 457 or through a savings plan or whatever retirement plan you have, you don't pay taxes on that rollover. That is a non-taxable event. Mm-hmm. You have to report that you've moved the money because the IRS says, hey, where did this $1 million go, right? But you don't pay tax on it until you take the money out of the IRA itself. So I want to go through each section to answer it as best I can without giving too many specifics because I don't know, Letty, but you come in for an appointment, we'll figure the rest out.
I love you said, no, I can't tell you. It's like, so, Ben's really good, but he's not going to, he doesn't, you walk in, he doesn't size you up and go, I think you have 300,000. Maybe, am I close? Am I right? No, he doesn't. Right. We don't have the crystal ball.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about like an old school tailor that can walk in and say you're 44 long. No, am I? It's like you got that tape measure on your neck. You want to use it? Yeah, let's figure that out.
Yeah, the neck's not so bad. When they do the inseam, that's a whole other story.
I think some people just go for that experience, but I'm going to stay out of it.
No, I don't like that at all. All right, Vincent in New Haven. It's nice to hear someone explaining finances in just plain speak. We do that? I guess, we do that.
I try not to. I try to be really good. No, thank you, Vincent. Sorry.
I enjoy your show. Now, you talk about steady income in retirement. How do you build that? This is a great question from Vincent.
Yeah, that's a good question. So this one I can actually answer. Thank you. So when it comes to income or time, there's a number of ways to generate that income. A lot of people like to use annuities where they kind of guarantee income. You reduce your principal over time. You run the principal down. You still get a guaranteed income, kind of like a traditional pension. So it's a very common way for a lot of advisors to generate income in retirement. There are other people that do things like a type of fixed annuity. They call it a MYGA, M-Y-G-A, multi-year guaranteed annuity, which is basically an annuity that is also a CD. But what you can do is you can take out that interest on a monthly or annual basis. So I've got $500,000 in a CD, I'm getting 5%. I'm getting $25,000 a year. I can take that over $2,000 and change a month and use that as part of my living without touching any of the principal. So there's another option depending on how conservative you are. But one thing to keep in mind, we'll use structured notes from time to time in our practice. That's a scenario where we're basically trying to create a barrier. As long as the stock market, let's call it the S&P 500, for example, does not fall by more than 30%, we can net our clients about 8% a year after our fees. Now, there are different pieces to that, but our goal is to say, all right, if I've got $300,000 in that account, I can generate $2,000 a month and maintain my principal. Now, if the market falls by more than 30%, I need to have a backup plan. That's another story. You didn't ask me about the backup plan. You asked me about income. But there are a lot of different ways to go about doing that based on what your goals are. If you want to leave a lot of money behind to the next generation, you don't want to throw it all into an annuity. And if you don't care about that and you are conservative, well, then maybe an annuity works. But there are a lot of different ways to go about getting the income. It's just figuring out what works best for the person in front of us.
Yeah, great question, Vincent. And bottom line is you need to go see Ben and his team because you heard it here. There's a variety of ways to get to that goal, and Ben will definitely point you in the right direction, but he needs more information. Like we always talk about in these questions, it's great that questions come in, but a lot of times we don't have enough information to give a really great answer. So, Vincent, thank you so much. Lenny, thank you for your question. And here's that phone number. Get on their calendar. 800-380-8985. Get the How to Retire Blueprint. It's a comprehensive plan. There's no cost, no obligation. Here's the other thing, too. It's an individual plan. It's a customized plan. It's not a cookie-cutter plan like some of these other guys. No. 800-380-8985, the How to Retire Blueprint. Or maybe you have a question or two during the show. You heard something, said, I don't quite get that. I wish Ben would explain that a little bit more. A lot of times we're under the constraints of only having enough minutes in the show to, not be able to do it justice. So we welcome your questions as well. 800-380-8985. All right, Margaret. All right. I've been getting so many calls and emails about buying precious metals or converting my IRA into gold. Is this legitimate? If so, is it smart?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's not legitimate. I would say that my concerns are if you're getting a ton of calls from one or a couple of companies, then I would be very concerned. I mean, somebody calls us, we reach back out to them. We don't hear from them, we reach back out again. We don't hear from them, we stop reaching out. We're not here to hound anybody. We're not going to give somebody 35 phone calls just because they contacted us once. I think, there are a lot of times when you put your name into some online forum because you want to hear from a contractor, you want to hear about a mortgage, you want to hear about something, and all of a sudden your phone doesn't stop ringing.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's the last thing anybody wants. So if that's the case, then that is a concern. I think that the idea of buying precious metals within your IRA makes sense for some people, but I wouldn't necessarily do it with a ton of your money. It's more of a concern about what you would want to accomplish with that money. Now, I will also tell you that I've had a couple clients that have done this. When you try to get your money out of those precious metals, that can be a big deal. I remember there was one client that didn't cost anything to buy any of the precious metals, but when he wanted to sell from there, or at least I don't know if it cost him anything to buy it, but I was on the sell side of it, it cost him 13% to get out of that gold. And it didn't matter if he waited 2 years or 10 years or whatever it was, 13%. I mean, because of all the process of buying the gold within the IRA, which to me was absolutely ridiculous. But, we think about how much gold has gone up since 2008. And, it's gone up a lot in the last year and a half. Not necessarily more than the market, but it's gone up a fair amount. I don't necessarily believe that gold is the same indicator of inflation that it used to be. Things have changed. But I'm not opposed to people having some money in it. I just think that it has to be balanced and diversified with other investments. But, ultimately, my goal is to try to help you retire. And we have a team of advisors here at Fuchs Financial that we want to meet with to help you get the How to Retire Blueprint. It's not some book that I send to you. It's not like a pamphlet where you say, hey, here it is, read it, good luck. What we do is have you sit down with one of our advisors and go through your process, see where you are. If you already have an advisor and you just want a second opinion on where you are, we're happy to do that. We do that for free for all of our clients. You don't have to become a client, but at least we can give you a different perspective and put you in a better position for retirement. Regardless if you work with us or not, we're happy to do that. And the reason that we're happy to do that is because we want you to tell everybody else how amazing we are at Fuchs Financial, and that helps us. So I think ultimately the goal is, what can we do to put you in a better position for retirement? I'd say for the vast majority of people, not outliving your money and maintaining a paycheck, right? You stop working. How do I continue to get a monthly paycheck from my investments in retirement? That's where we start. And then we need to have the right investments to get the right paycheck. So we need to put things in a different position. And if the market crashes, hey, we still need that paycheck. It's not because the market crashed, we stopped eating. That's not how it works. So we need to plan for those things. And then also taxes. Right? I'm getting paid. Great. How do I keep as much of this money in my pocket as possible? How do I pay the least amount of money in taxes over my lifetime? Are there strategies that I can use? Yes or no? Should I do them? Let's explore those. That's what we do in that How to Retire Blueprint. And then last, but certainly not least, is making sure that your money goes where you want it to when you are no longer here. We want to create an estate plan. We want to do a tax plan. We want to do an investment plan. We want to do an income plan. We want to have a succession plan. All these things need to work together for your retirement to make sure that you have peace of mind to do the things that you want to do and make money one less thing to worry about. We can't do any of that unless you pick up the phone and give us a call.
800-380-8985. 800-380-8985. Your chance to benefit from the How to Retire Blueprint. Call right now. We still have a limited number of availabilities on our calendar. They do go fast during the show. And remember, the consultations are for no cost or no obligation. Here's that phone number one more time, 800-380-8985. 800-380-8985. Do it right now while you're thinking about it. All right, the show has flown right on by. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. We hope you found the information we presented helpful. Look forward to all of you being back next week. We'll have new topics and new questions right here on How to Retire with Ben Fuchs. Ben, as always, it's a pleasure. Go out there and enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir.
Thank you, Gary. Same to you, my friend.
Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, hereafter known as Foundations, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment, opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Any discussions of specific strategies are for informational purposes only and have been provided to help determine whether they may be appropriate for your specific situation. If applicable, the primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. Each individual investor situation is different, and ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Nothing herein constitutes a recommendation that any security, portfolio of securities, or investment strategy is suitable for any person. No legal or tax advice is provided. Please review your retirement, tax, and legacy planning strategies with a legal or tax professional before transacting or implementing any strategy discussed herein. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. This is not endorsed or affiliated with the Social Security Administration, any federal Medicare program, or any U.S. government agency. If applicable, we do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. All rights reserved.